Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to the 8th episode of NativeScript Air. We're gonna have some interesting conversations today, and we'll pretty much focus on automating your build process for NativeScript applications. So I've got Jeremy and Simon with me, who are our main guests, who basically are gonna explain how they use it in real life environments. So you guys wanna introduce yourself very quickly?
Yeah, sure. So Simon, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Hi, everyone. So I'm a front-end developer at Chronogolf, like Jeremy. And basically, I've been working here for maybe a bit more than a year now. And we work together on the mobile app, first the main mobile app of our company. And we work also on how we can automate things around the mobile app. You will see, we'll talk about more the issues you can find in this process. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it. I jumped between web and mobile.
Perfect.
Yeah. And from my side, so my name is Jeremy, and I am a front-end developer at first, but I moved to NativeScript 2 years ago now. And at Chronogolf, we've been using NativeScript to build some golf-related mobile apps. And we got a bunch of them now. We got 14 of them, so I'm going to present them a bit later. So we are a bit concerned with what's related to automation. And we already spoke about the test that we can do on mobile app with NativeScript in a past couple of weeks. But just testing without automating is it's just a nonsense to me. So now we're gonna go a bit further and try to explain that. I mean, how we feel it.
Okay, cool. So, and like we talked before the session, so I know it's cheating, but I know you guys have a presentation to share that you're basically gonna take us through the process of how you do it. Is that what you can expect?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we previously explained how to write your tests. So this is not the point here. The point is really, well, how to build automatically an app, how to test them automatically. What hooks can you build? Can you expect on that? How could you deploy automatically an app to the store? I don't know, as soon as it's merged on a master or something like that. So this is what you can expect on this talk.
Perfect. And it's pretty much like a tricky thing for a lot of us, for a lot of developers, because we know how to write the code, but infrastructure is usually the tricky bit, right? So that's definitely something I'm really looking forward to.
Okay, cool. So I hope you're gonna learn something too today.
Well, that's the plan, right?
It is. Okay, so I can jump on the presentation now, I guess.
Sure, yep. So you can share the screen, and then you could probably share the presentation.
Okay, so you should see my screen now. So right to the presentation. So we already introduced ourselves, but I'm going to do a bit of introduction about Chronogolf and what we do in Chronogolf. So we've been users of NativeScript since 2 years now. We have 14 apps delivered to a production stage right now, so Android and iOS, and we got a bunch more to come. And
that's a lot of apps.
It is. So this is why the automation is really a big. It's a big process for us, because otherwise you spend too much time on losing the time of somebody who is able to do so much more. This is like an intern job, so you do want to spend all your days doing that, right? And so yeah, we've been contributing to a few plugins as well. So this is who Chronograph is and what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So about testing, why do we want to test? We already explained that a few weeks before, but splitting in a context, you can do some end-to-end testing, also known as UI testing. For instance, my best example is a sign-up page. Once it's done, you never want to test it and fill the form again and again and again. So this is why you have to build a test and automate the process. On the other end, you get some functional spec. This is really depending on what kind of code you use, but it could be some reducers if you use Redux or NGIRX, pipes. It could be services, helpers, pretty much anything which is used in your application. And why do we want to automate that? Because, as you say, Sebastian, we are developers and we don't want to spend too much time on that. This is really time consuming to switch context. If you got an API server running behind your app, you have to seed it. You have to do a bunch of things that are not really cool. And yeah, we are a bit lazy. I am at least, and I'd rather have fun coding some new features than spending all my days debugging or testing my app.
So I've got a quick question while we're here as to like why to do it. So I kind of expect that the first time I set up the automation, it could be time consuming, but then like I saw like you have a lot of experience with it already. So if you were to add the 15th app now, like how long do you think you would take to do the setup?
Pretty much nothing, honestly, because we don't have an automatic testing on each app. So what we do is that we test a few of them, and we expect that our building process will succeed in every time. You know, it's a principle of the sample. Cool. You get a population of 100 people, and you pick a few of them, and you can expect that if some people are filling some criteria, all of them will. So this is what we are doing.
Basically, we have a lot of common things in our apps in terms of features or in terms of code. So the fact that we share this allows us to test a few parts of them and expect the whole things to work the same way.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. It's not necessarily the answer I was expecting. I thought it was like, oh yeah, we take a couple of hours, but that's even better.
And yeah, so YV testing, moving back to what I was saying a bit before, we don't want to push bug to production. Dealing with website is totally different than mobile apps. We get some ratings, so people will complain and give you a 1-star rate, and to get the rating up back, it will take you so much effort. You get the store approval delay. Even if Apple put some effort on it, you have to wait for at least days, and yeah, there is so much stuff to say about that, but it's a common principle. It's not related to what we're doing on mobile apps or native scripts. So yeah, that's it. Just a reminder about what we've done about testing. So there is already a blog post I wrote a few weeks ago and the previous podcast, and we talked about the Appium setups, the dependency, how to write your specs, and a bit of automation with CI, CircleCI. You get Travis, you get Source Labs. So we're gonna talk about some parts, but some are already explained in those contents. So feel free reach up and to read them if you need anything. We use CircleCI in Chronogolf. I know that Travis is recommended for plugin developers in native scripts, but Travis is really good if you got a free open source project. At Chronogolf, we don't want to open source our code base, so it would be a per month fee like CircleCI. So as we are already used to work with CircleCI, we kept it that way. CircleCI got macOS VM, so it allows us to build either Android or iOS app. That's it. And I don't think the point is knowing if we're going to work with Travis or CircleCI. The process will be pretty much the same. You get an example. Here's the NativeScript Facebook plugin using a Travis setup, so you can have a look at what they are doing. But once you understand what's going on behind the hood, you won't have any problem dealing with Travis or CircleCI or anything else. I don't think it's just a tool, and you can use it one.
And actually, if you're a company but you don't want to open source everything in your code base, one of the interests in CircleCI is they have a free plan for companies, while Travis doesn't have it. So it can be a point that helps you choose it.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, so you can start for free at least, or play with it.
Exactly. So moving on to the next part. The next part will be with Simon. So he's gonna explain you how to connect with CircleCI. So Simon, I'll let you explain.
Yep. So thanks. To help you a bit with this, we've created. I might want to share my screen first.
Cool, go for it.
Okay, so sorry guys. You have it. Wait a minute. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we've created a GitHub repository where you will find an example of integration with CircleCI for TNS app, and also inside it, CircleCI setup folder, which is kind of a walkthrough on how you will connect to CircleCI and how to set up your first project. So just quickly, the platform is really seamless in terms of integration with GitHub and Gitbucket. If you already have an account, you just have like easy sign up buttons. CircleCI will automatically add hooks on your account to allow it to read your branches, your commit, your pushes, this kind of things. So it can automate things. That's the way it works. So first you will arrive with an empty dashboard. You can add projects. And the specific things here is we want to build both macOS and Android apps. So we will need to have a macOS environment. But the way it's made for now, you still choose a Linux machine to start with. You will find your GitHub project. And then in the next step, you would choose macOS. It's just because they expect some kind of files in a macOS repository. So that's the file we build in the platforms folder, but you don't have it all the time versioned in your repository. So that's why we have to go for Linux first, then switch. So once we have selected the project, we can select the platform. We choose order for languages. It doesn't really matter. We will have to set up the whole environment to work with because we are in a hybrid app. So you have to install Node.js or JS dependencies, and also Android and iOS. So it's kind of a mix. And then you will be a bit helped by the platform. They will give you a sample config file, but the config file is not at all what you will use in the end. It's just a sample. Jeremy will teach you a bit after how to set up it and what are the steps inside it. But basically, that's the step you want to focus on at first. It's having a good config file, verify it works. As you will see, if your config file is not rightly set up, the platforms in CircleCI will tell you why. You can have example and insights on where is the issue. It's a bit cryptic, but once you understand it, it's kind of logical. It's TML debugging, so it's not always easy to have a stack trace. And once your config file is done, you will be able to build, activate your plan, and see why your build failed, for example, and make it work and deploy it, for example. So that's pretty much how we connect to CircleCI. It's, to be honest, it's really a platform we worked already for the web, but we also like it because the team is really friendly and they're eager for feedback. So if you have an issue, you can really contact them, speak with them. They might help you. You can give them also insight on what to improve in the platform. So that's also something we liked in this solution. For now, I think that's pretty much it. I will let Jeremy explain you a bit what are the different parts in the process of automating your CircleCI business.
Cool.
Yeah, cool.
And we could probably try to share the link to your presentation on
sure.
YouTube after. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I will tweet that after the talk.
Perfect. And I'll add it to the comments.
So moving back to what Simon was talking about. So what you have to do is put on the root of your apps a circle.yaml file, which will be the configuration of your CI. We are still using the V1, and I'm gonna present you how to use the V1. But you have to know that the V2 is already open and used, and the V1 will be deprecated in a couple of months. So we are going to use the V1 because it's pretty much the same flow than Travis right now. And we'll try to keep you guys updated if when we have moved, where we have done the transition from the V1 to the V2, and maybe share new configuration.
And for now, the GitHub repository we will share use the V2 already, and I will just tell you a bit about the differences afterwards. So don't worry, it's really close.
Yep. So moving on to the CircleCI, so the boilerplate. So on the left, you get the main parts. Each part will be represented in the CircleCI UI, so you can see the machine dependencies, and each line corresponds to one of the sequences you will be writing on your configuration file. So it's basically what you want to do if you have a new Mac and you want to rebuild all your application. You have the global setup. You have to install your dependencies, npm, the cocoa pods, appium. You got to set up and configure if you got an API server running a background. You got to build the app. You got to run your spec and then build and deploy. So the first step is the machine. What you want to do is tell CircleCI which version of Xcode you want to use. If you got some environment variables, Android, for instance, you can have some whatever you want. The time zone, if the time is could be an issue for you. The general is the second part. This is where you're gonna tell CircleCI on which branch do you want to activate some process. So if you want to build or if you want to test only on develop and masters, this is what we are doing basically, because you pay the CI per use per minute. So sometimes running the whole suite on all the branches and all the commits could be really expensive. So this is up to you to define what you want to do on that. So the dependencies, this is a much more important part. So the first one, the cache directories. So whatever you want. On the V1 is not really that important, but V2, this part is really important. Simon will tell you a bit more about that later. It can save you some time. But what we want to do here is install all we need to build and test our app. So we're going to tell CircleCI to install the CocoaPod. We're going to install native scripts, stuff like that. So I'm going to tell you a bit about the record screen later, but it's not relevant for now. And you want to npm install everything. And a trick for the post sequence is to pre-start your emulator, because you will need it later for your suite. So if it's already running in the background, it will be ready when you need it.
Oh, and in terms of like the settings for native scripts, so that's basically what you change every time you updated a version of native script, right?
Sorry, what was that?
So in the previous settings, you were actually also setting like npm install native script 343. Yeah. So is that like the only place you set the version of native script you want to test it against?
Oh yeah. Once you've installed it, it's done everywhere.
Okay, cool.
It's like you can imagine that everything that is written on the file is pretty much like yourself writing in the console this sequences, these actions. So once you've installed native script, well, it's done. It's done. You don't have any separated containers that won't have access to TNS command or something like that. Everything is running in the same box.
Perfect. And also, like, I had a question out here. So from your own experience, when you run tests, do you test both Android and iOS applications? Or because things like the Android one is free while the iOS one is paid, what do you guys do?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, for now, what we do is we only test on iOS. Why that? Because iOS users are a bit picky comparing to the Android ones. So this is why we put some effort on the iOS instead of Android for now.
Yeah, it's also a bit. We have more users on iOS for now, so it's a way for us to start having something that work, that is efficient at least for our needs, and we try to improve it going on Android. But it also adds a lot of time or is more costly if you want to test on both platforms, because you need either more machines to test on or a longer duration of your test suite. So it's a compromise we choose to help us.
Exactly.
Cool, that makes sense.
So moving on to the next step, which is the database. The database is an optional step. I mean, it's really up to what kind of application you're creating. If it's just a tab button or anything that doesn't need an API running in the back, we'll skip this part. But as we are using an API, we want to test the app in a real life context. So we have a seeding and stuff like that, and we want to expect the same thing every time. But I'm not gonna dive much more into that part because it's really dependent on what kind of application you're writing. Next one is the compile step. So what you're gonna do here is that you're gonna basically prepare and build your application for the testing sequences. Yeah. And the test one, which is a much more important one to me right now. So I told you guys that I installed a screen, record screen plugin. So this is this one. This is really helpful because what this is gonna do is that it's gonna record the whole screen during the testing sequence. So I'm going to show a bit later, but when you have some debugging to do, it's really easy to get a movie of your sequence instead of just having a black box running your script. So we're going to put that in the background. And then on the first step, we're going to launch our end-to-end testing. So with run type and reuse device that we've seen previously. The second one, the TNS test iOS, is the functional test. So what I told you, it could be pipe services, whatever you want. And the post sequence, after all these steps have been fulfilled, is the export. So the result, you want to export them as artifacts. So an artifact, it's basically a file that will be accessible to you once the suite has finished running. So you want to move all the end-to-end reports into the artifacts and as well the screen.move that I will show you later.
Cool. And that recording you purely just use in case something went wrong, you can go and like, hey, see, oh, so this is what's happening. It's kind of like just purely for reference, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, well, yeah, I can. This is I got another slide, but I'm gonna go back on that in a few seconds. Yeah.
Okay.
So for the test, what I suggest as well is define a specific platform, whether you want to run it on your local machine or on the CI. So basically what it look like is just as simple as that. You get an iPhone 7 and a circle.sim.iPhone 7. In the blog post, I've talked a bit about SourceLab. SourceLab is a good example on why you want to do that as well, because you get some extra step. Maybe that your CI doesn't have the right platform version, which is the case in Platform CI. I'm using the 11.2 on local and 11.0 on the CI. So this is something that I strongly suggest. And moving back to the debugging section. So we got a screenshot of our suite running on the CI. So we got the artifacts page. I'm going to show a real context instead. It's easier. So this is one of our suite failing. So once you've got all the suite failing, come back. Yeah. So okay, everything is good. Oh, something went wrong. So moving back, you get an artifact tab. You can click on it. And what you're going to find on that is for the screen.move. So what it's going to do is that you recorded the whole interaction. So I'm going to see, okay, everything is going right in here. And if a button is on display or something like that, it will pop up immediately. So it's it's so much easier to do stuff like that.
Yeah, because the artifacts in images are a good things to have like an idea about what has failed, but sometimes you miss the context. You don't know why something went wrong, and being able to come back a bit back in time helps you a lot to find issues actually. So it's something we really recommend.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense. And just quickly while we're on it as well, like so when you do testing, you had like multiple configurations for your iPhones. Do you test on like both of them, all of them, or do you just choose one?
No, just one. Just
Okay.
one. Because if you're using images comparison with Appium, it's good, but at the same time you're saving a lot of data on your application. So each time you're adding a new device or a new platform, you have to. It's twice the size, so it can be really heavy in terms of memory consumption.
And also in our company, we tend to complete this automation with manual QA testing. We have people that are dedicated to this. So you can expect them to find issues on various platforms, while we want to have like one test suite we can automate and which is efficient on the CI.
Yeah, and I guess you're looking also for like immediate and obvious mistakes, right? Something that you just don't want to test over and over again, but it's good to know. Right?
Yeah,
It's
true.
like, hey, the login button disappeared, right? Or the
Yeah,
login
exactly.
function doesn't do anything anymore.
Exactly. This is a basic flow. For our Golf application, what we want to test is that the user can log in, then he can find a tea time. He can invite his friend, and he can book. And when it's booked, it's on his dashboard and stuff like that. But we can't test. You cannot test anything every time for sure. So having someone doing the QA, the real life QA in the production is really good as well.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and so moving back to the artifacts, so you get also the iPhone 7 file folder. So sorry, and you will find all the actual and diff images. What went wrong? So we expected the one on the left selected, and it was the one on the right. So you can also have the actual file. So let's say sometimes, as I say, I'm a bit lazy and I change all the paddings on my app. So you got the imaging that if I'm doing some images comparison, I have to regenerate the whole images. So what I do basically is that I let suite running, and then afterwards I'm going back and pick all the actual and commit them and let the suite rerun, and then it's going to be green. But yeah, it's a trick that that can be helpful if you tend to change your layout quite often. It can save you sometimes some trouble as well.
Yeah, so I kind of see it as a logic of, hey, you flagged an error. Actually, this is what should be expected from now on. Make it default, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. But at least you have a nice automated way to generate all those files.
Yeah, I could do it in my local machine, but I say I need to step out of what I'm doing. I need to build the app for the test sequence, stuff like that. So it's
time consuming, and it's a bit of time lost for us. It's not features we are coding what is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, this is for the artifacts, and what you can do as well. on your GitHub project is that you can put the CircleCI step as required, and what it's going to do is that it's going to prevent anyone from your team to merge the PR as long as the circles are the circle tests are failing. So it's going to prevent you to push a bug further in a higher part of the code, master for instance, and you have to fix them. So it's a way to educate people to write and to clean their spec and their code after each feature, after each bug fix, after anything. And once you've got a quite huge team, it's really, really helpful.
Yeah, totally. I think we have a very similar setup inside the native script structure. That with then a pull request that breaks it, it will just stop you there. I love
Travis, Travis does the same, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other cool thing is that I might not have access to your CircleCI setup, but I could send pull requests. Something goes wrong, and then I could actually try to fix it on my side and resubmit the changes, and then try to get it fixed even without talking to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
And so as for the configuration file, so the last step is the deployment. So I'm not gonna talk too much about what you can do, but what we do and a bit of strategy that you can implement in there. So what we are doing in Chronograph for the deployment phase is that we plug on master on develop different behavior. So what we want to do on master is that we want to build and deploy for production. So it could be as simple as TNS publish iOS, for instance. Whether on the QA part, on develop, what we want to do is that if the tests are successful, we want to build the app with testing setup and send them to one of our QA masters. So we build our apps in different configuration. As we say, we got some API server running in the background. So we could build our app on production or on demo or on develop. So it's up to you to choose which strategy you want to implement. You can have one bundle ID, so one app basically to rule them all. And then you can configure your different environment with a scheme on Xcode, for instance. Or what we do is that we got different bundle IDs for each one of our environments. So we want to add the develop if we are pointing to the develop API, demo if we are pointing to the demo one. And well, Simon will talk to you a bit more about how you can build your certificates with FastLane easily a bit later. But what we do on the QA part is that we noticed that TestFlight was not really appropriated to do some QA. And as we push some apps sometimes with a developed environment for the testing, you end up with the same bundle ID, but you don't know really what platform is running behind. So it's easier for us to get different bundle IDs. So this is easier as well to get on your phone. You get a test chronograph, a demo chronograph, a chronograph which is pointing to production. So we move the QA out of TestFlight and we use something named DAWI because we wanted to get the same flow for the Android and iOS QA. But you can use Hockey app, which is maintained by Microsoft. or app libraries, stuff like that. So what we do on the QA part is that we build with the right configuration, and then we send it to DAOI. DAOI is free, and got the advantage that you can put any password, stuff like that, that can prevent anyone to install the app. But it really depends on your flow. You can just do a push to production if you're fine with it. Well, that's it for the configuration. We're going to move to the strategies of deploy and FastLane, stuff like that.
Just quick question. So around the deployment part you covered, it was purely around, okay, so we've built the application, we passed some of the basic tests, and now want to send it to our QA team, but not necessarily just publish yet, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of
that's right. Because even if on develop you get some tests running, it doesn't mean that you cover the whole flow of your app. You may have some tricky stuff happening with payments or Stripe, something like that, and you can really automate that. So we want to be sure and push that to one of our manual QA master. And then if they found something that we missed, then we're going to write another test. Then we're going to automate.
Yep. So, and I'm actually out of curiosity, in terms of how you guys work internally, because you could literally send a pull request 3 times a day, right? Like, how does it work on your QA side? Like, do you notify them saying like, hey, we're planning to push some changes, would you be able to test it? Or how do you organize yourselves as a team in this case?
Well, what you can do is, instead of having three PRs merging directly in a develop, is that you can bundle them in a release branch or something like that. So your QA master will be notified just once, and then after that you can use Slack, or you can even talk to them in the real life. Actually, it works pretty well. You can tell them, hey, we added that, we fixed that, and we want you to test those parts.
I think for the moment we have a team that is small enough to be able to do it quite seamlessly without having a lot of processes or this kind of things. We do a bit of QA on our side before pushing it to develop and in QA. And when it's in QA, we expect our QA guys to come and tell us, okay, there is an issue with this, but I'm not sure if it's something new with the feature you just coded. So can we just take a moment and watch it together? So for now, it's a lot of communication and direct flow, I guess.
And it makes a lot of sense, because for as long as people are involved in the process, we should always talk to each other and kind of communicate and help each other. I was just curious, like, whether there was anything specific you do, but yeah, you do what common sense dictates. Go and talk.
That's right.
Excellent. So we kind of like have a couple of steps already, right? So we managed to build the application and test it, verify our pull requests, whether they can be merged or not, and then we have a seamless way to pass it on to our testers, right? That's where we are so far.
Yeah, exactly. So now the last part, which is going to be with Simon, is the deployment strategy, how you can build and maintain your certificates, FastLane, stuff like that. So I give you the hand, Simon.
Yep.
Cool.
Just a small note before we go further. Regarding CircleCI V2, as we said, what Jeremy told us is almost the same. The thing is, you won't have like specific step named, for example, machine, deployment, or dependencies. Now you are a bit more able to like manage them as you want. The whole thing is a workflow. you have jobs inside it which do what you tell them to do. For example, you can have a dependencies job, this kind of things. And you tell, okay, for example, QA workflow, I want to install this, test this, then send here. And for your master workflow, which is publishing, you have other jobs, or you reuse the same jobs. So it's kind of the same. It's a bit more flexible, and I've put details in the GitHub repository. Once again, you have a node.md file where we explain a bit more about the different caching, this strategy, this kind of thing. So I would really encourage you to go deeper in this, because it's really something you can put around your workflow and the side of your company, this kind of thing. It's really flexible. So that was just something else. Regarding the last part we have, now we were able to send it to QA, but we need to deploy, and even that before, we need to have a way to automate creating bundles, for example, or just being able to automate all the things that are basically often painful. For this, we use mostly FastLane, which is a tool you can find easily. I guess it was created by the guys from Twitter, but is now owned by Google. It's a really powerful tool, especially if you have a native app, because it has a lot of integration that are automatically done. But even for hybrid apps, it gives us a lot of key steps we can automate. For example, you want to create a bundle, you can just, so I go right there. If you want to automate your bundle, you can use a command is like this, produce. You will be able to say, okay, I want my new bundle on iOS called like this. Then eventually, if you need, you can add like certificates for SSL, this kind of things. For the provisioning profiles, we use Match. You could ask why we want to automate this and use a tool to centralize it, but technically, even if you are alone and you have like one bundle ID for the production, one for the QA, for example, and you're starting to have to think about where you put them, do you still have the private keys in your machine? If you change the machine, do you have transferred them? These kind of things, it can become really painful. On top of that, you add the fact that you work in a team, and it's obviously impossible to maintain if you don't have a tool like this. It becomes really painful. So on our side, we use Match, which basically will use like a private GitHub repository and stock them inside it. For the push notification certificate, this kind of things, we use PEM. I won't go further on this one, specific to like a really small part of it. FastLane is mostly on this part useful for us for iOS. For Android, we still create the bundles manually for now. We are thinking about how we can automate this, but I think you can't like create a new bundle by the API. You can only update a bundle that already exists. But I'm not exactly sure about this. I need to go deeper in there. The thing is, for the key store, this kind of things, which is kind of the Android part, like the provisioning profile for iOS, we just stock them in a private repository, like Match do for iOS, and we check out them in our CI when we need to bundle, or on our local machine when we need to bundle too. So it's really simple this way for us for now. So this is all that gravitates around being able to build your apps. But it's already something that FastLane automates easily. And then you have the release part. The release is like when you have one or two apps and you don't publish that often, it can be done manually. For now, we have been doing it most of the time manually, because you want to be sure it works. You want to understand all the caveats you can have in like how the process goes. You need to understand the various steps. Where are the steps when you lose time? And once you've done this, you can automate them. It's often the way we try to think about things we want to automate. So for Android, for now, we published, for example, the APK manually. And for iOS, we used TNS Publish, which is quite powerful for now. But the next step is using FastLane for those as well. And FastLane for this gives you like a real simple tool. Once again, you have all the details in the node file if you want to go deeper on this. But it's just you create like a connection, a kind of edition mode from FastLane. You tell them, okay, I fetch all my metadata, my screenshots, everything I need to be able to publish a new version. And then you have just to modify them if you want. Otherwise, just a command to run, which is FastLane deliver and FastLane supply. And you just have to give it the APA, the APK, and it will go automatically, upload it on the store, update the metadata like the descriptions, the title, these kind of things. And you will be ready for the release. We still, on our part, want to avoid like an automatic release in production. We always want to have like the final click because we're not sure it's safe enough for now. Maybe when we will have automated for like months or years, we will think about it. But we recommend to always have like a safe step at the end. So I don't know if it's clear enough, but basically we will really go with FastLane because it's easier and gives you a lot of tooling. Once you've got it pretty much in your head, you can even do like a fast file, which is a file in which you will write your command and you can give this to a person of the team who don't know how FastLane works. They just have to launch a command, for example, fetch provisioning profiles, publish to item store, this kind of things, and it will be automated also and seamlessly transparent for the rest of your team. It's really powerful, and you can go step by step to make it seamless for your colleagues.
That sounds good. So just to get it right, so even though you don't use FastLane at the moment to do the actual push to the store, you still use it to prepare the kind of the publication for you, right?
Yeah, that's it. We are working actually on the script at the moment to publish, but yeah, it's something you want to be really careful with. So we do like small tests, this kind of thing before going full production. But we use it at least for everything regarding creating bundles, having all our provisioning profiles, or certificates for push notification, this kind of things.
Okay, and I had a question from the audience around providing provisioning profiles to TNS. How do you do that? How do you use FastLane to pass it to TNS?
So at the moment, we reuse one of the native scripts from the core repository, from the CLI, which allows you to give bundle IDs, the environment you want, and it gives you back the matching provisioning profile on your machine. So we use this script in a custom script we've made to get it, and then we pass it directly in the command. So that's steps we automated with shell scripts, basically. You can find some of them in the repository, actually. There is a script folder where I think we put, let me check. Where the script here is actually, let me share the screen. And there it is. In the repository scripts get provisioning profile, we use this from which we took from the CLI core repository, and then we just like ask the machine if it has the matching provisioning profile, send it back, and we use it in other scripts.
I see.
But I think that even if you are just using a single user on FastLane and on your certificate, you can just sign your bundle with the -- team ID instead of the -- provision, because the -- team ID will just auto-match the relevant certificate.
I think now it works pretty well. We tried it. I know we used to give the provisioning profile manually, because also on our machines we had like different users, this kind of thing. So we keep this, and it can be an error. Like if you got the number, it's obviously it will work. But for most of the time, team ID will work too, and especially if you have only one user on a machine.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, okay, so I have a question whether the script was available. So you basically showed it. So we're gonna share it, but it's basically everything is gonna be on GitHub /sbat/tns CircleCI example. So maybe after the session, you guys can go and check the comments.
For now, the part about end-to-end test is not on this repository yet. Also because Jeremy made a good article, so we don't want to like overlap things. But maybe we will add it in the future if it can help people to set up things.
Yeah, there is already an example of the circle.yaml, but all the parts are extracted from our real circle.yaml file. And I just tweeted the link to the presentation, so you guys will be able to read and to recheck all that we've shown. And there is already the link to Simon GitHub project on it. So all the scripts, all the information about the CI, how it works, how do you configure FastLane, stuff like that. Everything will be explained, and sometimes it's easier to read it on your own with clear.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's definitely good. Yeah, because we can just go and check the presentation you were giving to us. There's another question. Well, not exactly automation, but what do you use to get screenshots? Like, what sort of tools do you automate taking screenshots that you pass to FastLane?
You mean the one we upload to the stores?
Yeah.
Okay. For now, our designers he does them because we have like feature flags on our apps, and we don't want the screenshot to have always all the things appearing, and he wants to have a bit of customization on it about colors of the device. So for now, he provides us the screenshots himself.
Okay.
They are done in Sketch, actually.
And are you planning to actually automate that at some point?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Because the name I have it here is called Frame-It. I don't know if you guys heard of this tool.
Yeah. I have.
Okay. Have you used it?
But no, not for now. We're still using Sketch, and yeah, we got some templates on it. But at some point, yeah, we would put some effort on it. But it really depends on how much application you need to manage. For all the screenshots, you basically create them once, and after that, it's done. You don't have to recreate them weeks after weeks after weeks. So it always depends on what does it cost to, I don't know, it's a weight you have to measure.
Yeah, and it's the same for the app icons and the splash screens. For example, we have like custom storyboard for iOS apps, so we don't use the tool that now NativeScript provides to automate creation of those assets, but definitely are thinking about it. Maybe we won't be using this tool as we have specific needs, but for now it's easier for us just to have a sketch file with a template and fill it with our images. But yeah, it's, as Jeremy said, it's a question of balance and how much time it costs you to do them.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Yeah. That sounds pretty cool. Also, Jeremy, you mentioned that you tweeted the slides. I'm not sure if you shared your Twitter handles for you and Simon. Did you have it in your presentation?
Yes, sure. Let me share my screen.
Then everybody will be able to find you.
Absolutely.
Let's do that.
So yeah, the last page was contact information. So you can find our Twitters, and we try to be available on the NativeScript Slack platform. But as we work, sometimes we might not be able to answer your question right on time. But yeah, so the article will be available on my Twitter, and Simon will share the
link
GitHub. Yeah.
Perfect. And that's basically sbots underscore under after, right?
Exactly.
That's the tricky bit. All right, perfect. I mean, I actually added your Twitter handles in my when I was tweeting from NativeScript Air, so people can also use that to find you.
Exactly.
But yeah, guys, this was really useful. I'm definitely wanna try to dive in and then see how far can I get based on what you guys were explaining to us. But this is really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks for joining us, and to our audience, thanks for listening. Bye.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.